What's up, everybody? Welcome to our show. My name is Ryan Swokowski.
And I'm Heather Swokowski.
And today we are joined by Senior Pastor Jonathan Freeze of Music Life Church Appleton. Hello, Jonathan.
Hi.
Joined by Senior Pastor Joel Swokowski of Music Life Church Kimberly. Hello, Pete.
Hey,
How are you today?
I'm doing great.
Well, how you feeling, Pastor Jonathan?
Feel excited.
Oh, man.
Thank you for having us. Let's go.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We are excited to have both of you on our show today. We want to discuss and ask some questions in around your podcast, What the Flock, about the Sex Before Marriage podcast episodes, as well as the divorce episodes. Yeah. So how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm super excited for this.
Awesome. You ready to start?
I am.
All right, let's do it. So for the viewers and the podcast listeners who don't know you guys, how long have you guys known each other? Like, when did you guys meet?
Yeah, 2009. Yeah, I was part of the home church that eventually became Musical Life Church, and Pastor Jonathan, that started in 2007. Pastor Jonathan started infiltrating our church and taking over as a leader.
Nice.
2009, which we were all blessed and happy that he did. So yeah, it's been, what is that, 11 12 years, almost 13 years now.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that, infiltrated our church. I like that.
Yeah.
Good way. That's not what it sounds bad for somebody, but yeah, in a very good way. So,
Yeah, in a good way.
that's awesome. So one of the things that Heather and I noticed while listening to your podcast is how you two complement each other very, very well. Have you guys always had that kind of connection from the beginning since 2009?
Yeah, I mean, I noticed how good looking he was right away. So I was always complimenting on him, on how cool his hair looked and how good of a musician he is. And, so it's really easy to find those ways to compliment him.
And I was totally not thrown by Joel's intelligence. It was just easy peasy right off the bat. It was so easy to get along, like,
Yeah.
we're just exactly the same people.
Yeah. Okay. So wait, you don't mean like affirming each other. You mean working together.
Working together.
Yes. Now I get it. Yeah.
Yes. You got it.
I agree with Pastor Jonathan. We haven't always worked well together, and we definitely haven't always worked as well together as we do now.
Got it. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I really noticed it seems like you guys are having a really great time doing this. I can really feel that vibe and that energy as you guys are doing this. So through these podcasts that you guys are doing, Pastor Joel, it seems like you've really taken on the teaching role within the podcast. And Pastor Jonathan, it seems like you're the interviewer and kind of connecting the audience, making this a safe place for them to come and join. So if you guys could answer this for us, are the viewers getting to experience like the real you, or are these just roles that you guys play for the podcast?
Oh, that's great. I would say that they are absolutely getting to experience, I would say, kind of like the tip of the iceberg. They do get the to experience me kind of being a bridge to the information, to the truth that we present. But I love to teach too. Like I kind of get chompy sometimes. You'll listen to these episodes and I will want to go on these rants, these teaching rants as well, which Joel has really helped me learn how to do and how to be a great teacher. So I will find myself teaching more, as well as I feel like we get to see the tip of the iceberg of like the heart of Pastor Joel. Like the amount that he cares, about people growing as leaders is really deep. We say, I've said in the past that some of our best friends will say, are we sure that Joel isn't gifted with some sort of compassion ability because of his heart to care for people? As a pastor, he does care for people, and he has this heart to teach and lead people and build them up and kind of protect them and make them strong. So I feel like people are really getting a feel for what it is like to hang out with us, especially in in the podcast, but in these interviews that we've been doing is another great way for people to kind of feel what it's like to hang out with us. And, my hope is that the people that do know us outside of these podcasts can speak to it, that they can say, that is absolutely who these two are. They're not using, they're not using different voices to sound like they have their stuff together, like that's how they talk. That's what, I'm hoping that our friends go, yeah, that's how Jonathan sounds. That's how Joel sounds. So
sweet.
Yeah. And I agree. I mean, the podcast episodes are, I agree. The tip of the iceberg is a nice way to explain that, because we talk about a lot of things when we're just having a conversation, where the podcast zeroes it in on one topic. So you're getting very much a feel of what me and Pastor Jonathan think and feel about the specific topic we're addressing. But I think the What the Flock podcast in particular is very much focused on the audience and very much focused on giving them the answer that we know will help them. It's the Malk podcast that is generally not going to have as many views or listens or downloads as what the Flock will, because that one's more tailored to leadership. And I would say that podcast is more than just, you do see a little bit under the surface as well, not just tip of the iceberg, because that's the one where if Pastor Jonathan's going to have a rant, it's going to be in those.
Nice.
And because that's the one where it's like, okay, now we're done talking to the people who've been hurt by church. Now it's time for us to talk to each other about what we think about the topic we just covered. And what's really cool is I remember early on when we were still working out our process. So we do these episodes back to back. So we'll do the What the Flock episode, and then we'll immediately start into the Malk podcast companion episode for leaders. As we were working on this process, I remember distinctly one of the times we got together to record and to do our show. We have to stop after the What the Flock is done, and then we have to start a new show and start the recording again. And there was this one episode where before I hit record, we found ourselves like 3 to 5 minutes where we're talking about what we just did. Like we're literally having this conversation. So that's how much you're kind of seeing what me and Pastor Jonathan do, to the point where he had to stop me from talking one day and said, "Hey, dude, we're talking about the episode. Just hit record."
That's great.
So now what we do is we save it. So now we just don't. Are you ready to go with the next episode? You ready to film the next one?
Oh, cool.
And then we just go bang right into the next one. That is real. I like that a lot, Pastor Joel. That is definitely a lot of what it is, because especially in that Music of Life Church podcast, that's us talking to each other, to our people, to our friends. Yeah. We're trying to give people the information that will help people, like that are helping the people. Like that's who we want. Whereas in the What the Flock, we're kind of talking to either, I have a picture of someone in my mind that I'm talking to, Pastor Joel might, and in a lot of ways, we're talking to the older versions of ourselves.
Oh, got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're kind of we're not trying to give people too much information, versus the Music of Life Church podcast is like, dude, let it rip. Freaking
Awesome.
Let it rip.
Yeah. And those times, like where I'll literally have moments where what we both tend to do during the Malk podcast is think, what would I say to my associate pastors? How would I help? How would I help them help other people in this topic? So I'm thinking of Pastor Ryan, or I'm thinking of, Deacon Heather, or I'm thinking of Pastor Eric, and, Pastor Jonathan's thinking of Pastor Patty and Pastor Simon. That's who so it's very different. Our attitudes to the different episodes are probably the biggest difference between what we're actually talking about is who the audience is, because we're still talking about the same topic. It's just got this little twist to it.
Sure.
Yeah. So you're definitely getting an accurate version. You're not seeing everything that encompasses me. You're not seeing everything that encompasses Pastor Jonathan.
Yeah.
But what you are seeing is an accurate representation of who we are.
Awesome. That's so cool.
That is great.
Can I jump in and ask a question here?
Please do.
So I know you guys mentioned that this relationship wasn't always what we are seeing now. What was that turning point for you guys? Like what actually got you guys to this point where it's so natural. It seems to be something, to me, it's amazing to listen to you guys. So what was that turning point?
Great question.
That is a great question.
Yeah. I get to
do you want to go, Pastor Joel, or do you want me to start?
Well,
we're probably going to say the same answer.
Yeah,
because you put your head down and I started beaming.
Yeah. So
at the same time,
I'll let you tell the story, but I'll just give the big picture. My answer is Pastor Jonathan had to confront me very, very directly in an area once.
Yeah, and I don't really need to give any more context than that. I guess I'll just provide a little bit more detail, which is the fact that I think our relationship before that confrontation was, I generally thought that Pastor Joel was an unfeeling robot. And Pastor Joel generally thought that I was too sensitive and needed to just, be more ambitious and get things done. Is that accurate, Pastor Joel?
Yeah, or even just more manly, right? Like more like, and I would say manly with quotes, not the way the way a real man, but like buck up, right? Buck up.
Yeah, exactly. So, stop being so soft and sensitive and, don't be, just try not to be guarding against like hurting people's feelings and all of that. So anyway, there was a situation that happened that really Pastor Joel was wrong in. And it was a conversation that him and I were having. And what I did is that he had a measure for me about how he thought he was right. Okay. And I essentially pushed back on that measure, on that proof of where he thought he was right. And I essentially asked him, is that a good measure or not? Now, one of the things that was really important in that confrontation is that I wasn't yelling and screaming and getting in his face to show him that he was wrong. I was talking to him like this.
Right.
Sweet.
And I was soft and I was gentle and I was caring and I was asking him questions like this. And what it did is that when I asked him that, is that a good measure, Pastor Joel? Is that a good proof that you're right? And he was like, no, that's not. And he was like, I'm wrong. And then it would just hit him. The interaction that we had been having, it hit him. And he started to replay all of the conversations kind of that we had prior, where I was asking him questions. And it hit him like a ton of bricks. And I was like, dude, I love you. This is amazing. He felt like total garbage.
Yeah.
And I was able to kind of swoop in and like bear his pain and help him through that growth. That growth opportunity. Like I didn't want him to slip into thinking that he was a bad person because he made a mistake, but I was just confronting him. Like I stuck in it, even though I was freaking out on the inside, like the whole time, just scared to death. I just kept, slowly asking him questions until eventually he saw that he was wrong. And so that was a turning point where it was like, I think I got the opportunity to show Pastor Joel, hey, this is how you like to be confronted.
Yeah.
This is how, this is how you feel cared for when you're confronted. Let's bring that into other areas. Did you see how effective that was? Did you see how that sensitivity really got a ton of work done?
Right.
That did.
So, and that was the turning point where it was one confrontation. And then it sent us on this trajectory, like a beautiful trajectory. It was,
Oh, wow.
that will be Pastor Joel's and my forever, our moment.
For sure.
Wow.
I'm getting chills right now.
Oh,
About
that's
it.
great.
Yeah,
Like,
such an amazing story.
It was such a powerful few days that ended in this confrontation that completely changed the path that him and I were on together. And, you know, I learned a bunch of things about what it really meant to be a man and a leader. And what I didn't know at the time is how important that was for Music Life Church as well. So, I mean, me and him were associate pastors together at the time.
Yeah.
And we're not working together to the best of our ability, not very interdependently at all. We both were doing our thing pretty much separately. And that was the moment where we kind of like, all right, I know I realized in that moment, I can't do this without him. And everything I lack, this guy's the best at. And I need to be better at those things. And I also need him to just be those things for me when I can't. And I remember, you know, we talk about this story quite often as it relates to some of these big turning points we've had. And this is one where, you know, there were some concerns from the higher up leadership in Music Life Church at the time of like, basically it's like if Pastor Jonathan, Pastor Joel don't get this figured out, if they don't handle this the right way, this could mean some pretty bad things for the entire church. And, you know, I think God definitely had our back through the whole thing. And we definitely had great support from our leaders and our wise counsel. But yeah, that was, as far as the impact was a lot wider than what I think either of us knew at the time. But
Yeah.
the impact just centrally focused on me and Pastor Jonathan was, I mean, it changed everything.
And it's like, you know, like I always believed that Pastor Joel is you know, very dynamic leader, an incredible teacher. And to see that sensitivity come out, you know, towards me in that moment was like, that broke all of the you're a robot type of thing. And that was over. It was like game over. No, he is the reason why, you know, Pastor Joel will get it. He's not unemotional. And that's what I thought. Like, he's unemotional. It's like, no. Anger is an emotion. You know, when someone is angry and when someone is getting worked up, if I start talking like this, it's showing that someone's sensitive. You're hitting something in them. And so, you know, like that moment, and that helped me see, oh no, Pastor Joel feels like incredibly deeply. And if he is shown where he's wrong in a major area, he's going to confess, he's going to admit that he's wrong, and he's going to fix it. And our relationship from that point on is really a story of what it looks like to repent. Where so instead of him going, you know, I don't, you know, like you're too sensitive, or I don't trust the facts that I'm getting from you, Pastor Joel now goes, well, tell me what you think, and I'm going to try to, you know, argue your point for you when you bring a different perspective than me. And the podcast is really, it's all a result of that, you know, that confrontation in that moment. So pretty cool. Thanks for asking.
Wow, that's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing. Honestly, too, and such loving responses from both of you, right? Like, Jonathan, for you to come in and respond the way that you did, in a loving way, to come beside him and, you know, bear that pain. And then Pastor Joel, even for you, like being able to respond and be humble and recognize, like, yeah, like I'm wrong in this, and this is actually what I want. And then being able to value each other. So that's awesome. Thanks, guys.
And I've seen that change too through Pastor Joel the last few years, of how you confront others, like the softness in that approach. So being able to like kind of take that from Pastor Jonathan and use that is great. And I remember, like, you're so sweet. The first time I confronted you on something, I couldn't do it. My heart was like racing. So Jonathan said, like, oh, I got to confront this guy. This is tough. And I confronted you and asked you a question, and then I froze, and you're like, so are you going to ask me the follow-up? Coached me through how to confront him in the moment, which is very sweet and loving. So it's great.
Dude, that's so good. What a teacher move. What a teacher move.
Right?
Let me show you how to kick my butt.
Yeah, like, oh man, but that's so sweet because he's helping me and it helped him too. So yeah, thank you so much. Well, I don't know if you guys know this, and the viewers out there, but Heather and I are married.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, right. How long's it been?
Is this news to her, apparently?
Yeah, right. We were talking about this the other night. How long? 7 years? 8? Like, we don't. 7 years?
7 years?
Yeah, 7+. So the topics that you guys discuss on your podcast, the sex before marriage and the divorce topics those are some heavy stuff for us.
Yeah. So these are really important topics to us. And so we wanted to be able to talk to you guys about them today. So one, like, they're important to us for multiple reasons. So we want to be able to help others in this area. We've also personally been damaged in this area due to like the worldly views that are out there. And we haven't always had a profitable marriage. The reality of that. So first, I want to thank you both for stepping into the opportunity to share the truth with the world. And then second, I do want to ask you guys why. Like, why did you guys choose these topics to talk about and share with the world?
I don't know.
Wait, are these important topics?
Yeah, these are really uncomfortable. I know. Like,
Yeah.
they're so important. So,
I'll give you the big picture. And then Pastor Joel, it is the probably the first biggest issue in the church. Like, why are these topics? Why did we jump on this one? Because I mean, you could say number one is church, or you could say number one is marriage. Those are the first two, but they are the biggest topics, the most pivotal. So the most damage can get caused in those areas.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. And so these episodes are where we really started, in my opinion, where we really started to dig deeper and start to really show what we can do in our podcast. Because all the episodes before this are what I've referred to in a different interview as low-hanging fruit. Really obvious, easy topics to discuss: drinking, smoking, tithing, reading your Bible. These are a lot of those issues tend to be more external issues, where I'm not dealing with what's going on inside a person, maybe not dealing with a deeply held belief even, right? Just, is it okay to smoke or not? Is it okay to drink or not?
Yeah.
When it comes to church, when it comes to marriage and divorce, everyone has a deeply held belief in those areas, deeply.
Right.
And that's where a lot of the damage comes from, that people feel so strongly about these beliefs, whether they understand it completely the way we would hope they would or not. What we do believe about these topics tends to be very, very deep and deeply ingrained in us as human beings. And so this was our, like, we want to touch on all these really tough topics. And these are, because these are the most damaging areas, it's the most opportunity and the most need for repair. Yeah. So that's why we touch this, because it's like, not only is it very obvious to us that this is an issue in the church, but it also started helping us as, like, we had enough episodes behind us where we built some momentum. We started feeling like we knew what our process was, what we're going to be doing, what we want to do moving forward. Let's start getting some heavy hitters here and start really showing people that what we have here is different. You're not just going to know if it's okay for you to have a beer on the weekends after you mow the lawn. You're going to know what deep is, because you know who else has a deeply held belief about marriage and divorce? God.
Absolutely. Amen.
So now we're starting to really, really touch on some things that are not only important to us and important to human beings just across the board, but these are really, really important topics to God.
Yeah. And listening to these podcasts on these topics, it's this constant like patting my brow as I'm listening to it and unzipping like, whoo, these are good. Whoo.
Yeah.
These are tough. They're great topics. Very important. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you. So when you guys first learned this information, what impact did it have to you guys personally? Like, what did that look like?
So specific to the sex before marriage and the divorce stuff, it was very much like, okay, I get it. Like, I get what I'm learning. I understand. Okay, it's completely different than anything I've ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense, but I'm not sold yet. Because for one, I'm on the damaged side of both of these topics. I'm a child of divorce and was not only raised in the church to believe that divorce is wrong, but also saw how I was living in a situation where it's like, well, I don't know how wrong it can be when I'm seeing good things happen, not necessarily directly connected to the divorce, but afterwards, and I'm seeing lives be better because of. So, and that's just my personal story. But so my point is there's a contradiction I'm seeing there.
Yeah.
And then with the sex before marriage, it's like, I've experienced with that myself, and also the questions. I remember the questions in high school and then when I was in the military of thinking like, why is this wrong? Not that I should just be willy-nilly about it and that it's not important to have sexual intercourse with somebody, but why does a legal document matter so much?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, does God care about a legal document so much?
Mm.
So I had all these questions that were unanswered, all these contradictions that led me to be unsettled, and a lot of pain in some of these areas too, because of experience, and not only of experience in these different concepts and topics themselves, but experience of being damaged and kind of lorded over by the church, and it dictated what I should think and feel about these things, with no account given for what my experience was with these things. So yeah, it was just it was like the pendulum was on one side and it completely swung to the other. It was like a culture shock when I first started learning this stuff.
Yeah, and I think for me, the first time I heard it, I think there was like this, like, are you serious? Like that makes sense, and I didn't want it to make sense when I heard it, because it gave a bunch of words to the feelings that I had with an area of experience that I have with, intercourse. And I was like, when I heard that, I was like, oh man, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like the information was like, oh, I need to do something. Like it immediately drove me to want to take an action, to make things right. So it was super convicting. And I think a lot of that, that conviction, it just felt like I got jammed like right into a box that I couldn't move. And it was kind of like, it was kind of arm wrestling someone who just like, boom, like game over. Like you can't even hold up. That's kind of how I felt with that information. Where it's like, it just made so much sense, because I know that telling people, to not have sex because it's a sin and God thinks it's a sin, it doesn't stop anyone.
No.
But then the first time I heard that information, I was like, oh man, that is going to stop me dead in my tracks from doing that in the future.
Right.
Because it's the only, and so, we talk about that in the podcast. It's like, this is the only thing in the man nights that I've led that has caused guys to not have intercourse willy-nilly, just be, or do it and feel guilty, or do it not, like it just goes, wait, what? It's like, yeah, man, that's just going to be your wife. I just want to let you know, like, That's what I believe. I think that God believes that too. So how, like, if you are going to have intercourse with her, like, are you ready to basically be one flesh with her and share all that you have, do and are, because that's the way God's going to start treating you. Like, are you ready for that? And it's just like, oh my gosh, no, I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for that. I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. And it's like, exactly. And I think the reason why there's been, you know, it feels so intimate and it feels so intense is because it's right. You know, I think intrinsically all of us feel this, that this intimate act is very, very real. And there is a soul tie that happens.
Yeah.
And so when I heard it, you know, be put that way, I just couldn't run from it. And then the fact that, you know, like the first time I got an answer about, you know, marriage and divorce in terms of how that benefits a community, how divorce can benefit, it was so different. But, you know, I was ready. Yeah. So I wanted to hear it. I wanted answers. I was so tired of don't do it because it's a sin and not know why.
Yeah.
Or like it's going to damage you and you're going to deal with that damage the rest of your life. So don't do it. It doesn't work. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Actually gives like words to it. Right. Like I think about like, we have little girls at home and it's like thinking about like what that looks like, you know, as they get older and stuff. And it's like being able to share the truth with them. It's like they then get to make that educated decision. I like to think, so I don't know about, I can share with you guys, but you know, I also like, I have experience in this of the sex before marriage. And I like to think that if I would have known the truth when I was younger, that I would have made a different decision. I can't sit there and say that I would have, because I don't know, but I at least would have had the information to make an educated decision one way or another. And so, it was like learning the truth behind it. It had this huge impact. And it was just like.
Absolutely. You bet. And we learned the truth of how God views marriage while we were like legally married. So we had to come with terms of like, God might, if we have other covenants out there, God might not view us as married. And that was like a gulp type moment, like, holy crap, this is nuts. So some of the hardest but best experiences of my life came through knowing these topics. And now where we've righted these wrongs and God, we believe God views us as a married couple, we can be more profitable for him and show that to others too. So,
Amen.
Yeah. So it's been great. Woo.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So when you guys learned all this, what was the most difficult thing for you guys to walk through?
Probably for me was the most difficult thing was learning the right way to teach this to people. I was excited about once I got a hold of like my own issues and all that. I didn't have a current marriage I was dealing with that I had to figure out how do we deal with this already being married. I was a single man when I learned this, very passionate about what I had been learning. And, you know, I'd been a part of the home church for, I think, a year or two before we started really digging into marriage and divorce and all that stuff. So for me, it was the season I was in was the season of I'm learning so much and it's changing my life. God's making sense like he's never made sense before. I'm hearing his voice clearly. I'm learning how to live that out. And I want to tell everybody, because you know what? Everybody's going to want to know that, especially Christians, right?
Right. Yeah.
I should be able to tell every Christian this stuff. So the most difficult thing for me was, I think when it comes to the sex before marriage, that really anything to do with marriage, anything to do with divorce, those are topics where it's like, all right, where I'm starting to learn, I need to be more tactful with how I'm teaching, because if I'm not teaching this stuff right, I'm doing the same damage that had been done to me for all these years. Just because I'm passionate about it, Doesn't mean I'm ready to teach it. And it doesn't mean people are ready to hear it either.
Mm.
That was the most difficult thing for me. You know, apart from like uncovering just what some of the ramifications of these concepts had on my past and what it meant from past relationships and what it meant, you know, in the marriage relationships that not that I had been a part of, but that I had been involved in or connected to in some way that had ended in divorce, stuff like that. Some of those questions dealing with some of that pain. But the biggest thing for me was I want to teach this stuff to everybody. I want to tell everybody that I want to tell everybody your legal marriage is garbage. It doesn't.
Oh, right.
You know? But and it's like, and I don't even believe that there is validity to a legal marriage, right? So, but at the time, it's like I'm so passionate. That's the vibe people are getting off of me. Is I don't know how to teach this stuff the right way. So I'm teaching it in a way where it immediately makes you on the defensive, like everything you've ever believed or taught is wrong. It's like, man, no, that's not the right way to teach. And, you know, we just earlier in this interview, you know, uncovering some of the lessons I needed to learn from Pastor Jonathan as far as not only confrontation, but teaching too, and doing it in a way that's more palatable and doing it in a way that benefits the people I'm teaching. So that was the biggest challenge for me.
Nice.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I would say for me, probably the biggest challenge, you know, aside from actually breaking a marriage covenant, like, because that was pretty tense. That was pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Was I think it's one of the areas that we get abused for because we hold such a different belief. So I think one of the hardest things about this information is the fact that it is just so polarizing and people will just walk. You know, as soon as it becomes anything different than a legal document, it's just people. That's what's so hard about it, is that people don't really want to have a conversation. You know, it's like, it's one of these topics where if you don't, you know, if you don't hold a certain belief on both sides, the freedom side or, you know, the strict side, you know, the loose side or the strict side, if you don't hold one of those two perspectives, which we don't, then everyone thinks that you're the enemy. So I think that was one of the hardest things, to have to go, you know, have a conversation. And I did have a conversation where someone said, you know, tell me I want to know your stance about marriage. And I say, well, I'd love to hear your stance on marriage too. And the person said, well, I will tell you what my stance is after you tell me yours. And I was like, great. So here's my stance. And their response was to go, well, that is wrong. And I'm not telling you what I believe. And going, okay, gotcha. But we learned we learned an awesome lesson from that. And to ask, you know, to really take time to understand where people are coming from versus just, hey, this is what like Pastor Joel said, hey, this is what I believe and this is the right answer. And here you go, ready, guns blazing. Here's the right answer. So yeah, so it's tricky. And that's kind of the, you know, the difficult part about having or believing that you have an ultimate answer, is that, you know, both sides will kind of gang up on you to say that you're wrong, which is, I mean, that is part of the story, but that's still, I still do struggle with that. You know,
it's definitely challenging.
It is. Yeah. I'd love to have everyone love me. If, you know, and I'd love to be able to love every single person, you know, and get along and have peace with all men, you know, all people and all of that, but it's not, I don't think it's going to happen here. So that is what's challenging.
Yeah. That's a great answer.
Yeah.
So Pastor Jonathan, how does that make you feel?
How does what make me feel?
How does it make you feel that, you know, like you want to share this information, but people don't necessarily want to hear it?
Yeah, it's hard. It still is hard. And I think there's moments of like real grief still in it. And I think that there's moments of anger, and I think that there's moments of, just kind of being numb to all of it. So I'm still kind of working through a spectrum of, what I'm trying to work on my own expectation of people. One of the things that really encourages me about, members of Music of Life Church Appleton is that a lot of them and our leaders are not losing hope in people.
Yeah.
And there are times where I just want to say, forget them all. Like let's have the good people, ride off in the sunset and say, see you later, everyone. But that's not right. That's not the right response. So I think what I'm learning to do is really try to step into these interactions and understand people and lower my expectations, because I think at the core of it, it all boils down to why I'm feeling the way that I feel is because I'm expecting people to respond differently than they are. So what I'm trying to do is own my expectations, my wrong expectations on people, and recognize, hey, sometimes it makes me sad. Sometimes I don't care, but it all boils down to why. Why do I not care at this time? Why does that make me mad at this time? Why does it make me sad at this time? And just to continue to focus on the opportunities that are right in front of me. Because I think if I start to go, oh, I wish I could do this, I wish I could do that, I'll just go right in the tank. I think I'll start to get really sad about where everything is. But there are so many good things, like, this podcast, working with Pastor Joel, talking to you guys, that there are moments of feeling like we are losing, because it feels like we're losing a lot. People are walking away. People are not saying nice things. Like, where are the masses of people going, oh, that's the answer I've been looking for.
Thank you so much.
For he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow. Like
they pick you up and
Rudy.
Yeah, I know exactly, right? And I think that Rudy moment is coming later. So I'm just trying to not lose hope and, do the things that I can do while I still feel like I'm constantly losing, So yeah, it's a great question.
Okay. I know this is a Pastor Jonathan question, but there's a funny thing me and Pastor Jonathan refer to sometimes when we feel like we're losing, and we've felt these seasons of that, and these not necessarily as long as seasons, but these moments, and sometimes the moments last longer than others. As from as early on as I've known him, from 2009, where what we'll often refer to it now is we have the right around the corner ministry, where what we say about like this big revival, this big explosion, this big like expansion of the truth God has given us is right around the corner. It's felt like that since 2009. Okay. It's right around the corner. And now, if I look back, there have been a lot of around the corner moments. They've never been what I've imagined them to be. And I'm not entirely sure if what I ever imagine it would be is what God has in store anyways. And there's definitely moments I look back and I think, if what I wanted to happen happened back then, we wouldn't be a church anymore. So so here's the thing that helps me feel settled when I do feel like we're losing. And I feel these things as well. Pastor Jonathan helped me with this in response to him hearing something at Music Life Church Appleton. Because it's like we are so passionate and ambitious about the information we have. We want to help people. And the things we cry out for more than anything are people to help, people to get this information to, people that we can see their lives be changed the way ours have, and the way the people in Music Life Church have, the way our families' lives have changed. And Pastor Jonathan was sharing with me, he said, I was crying out, like, why aren't there more people? Like, we're a small community. Why aren't there more people? People would be helped so much. Like, why aren't there more people here at our services? And someone, I don't remember who it was, but someone said to Pastor Jonathan, God's here.
Yeah.
And it's like,
amen.
You know what? He is. God's in attendance at the Music Life Church Appleton and the Music Life Church Kimberly services. He sees what we're doing. And when I feel and think that, not only do I get chills, but it immediately removes all those other thoughts about losing. Because you know what? I know he sees what we're doing. And I know if we're taking direction from him, his word won't return void. And what he's doing through us will have an impact. Maybe not the way I view it.
Yeah.
But whose will do I want to be done on earth? Mine or God's?
Yeah. Whose Rudy moment do you want it to be?
Like, yeah, I'd like to be the one hauling God on my shoulders,
right?
Look at him.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for everything that you guys do.
Yeah.
So I know you guys mentioned, like, some of the responses that you guys have received have kind of been like this, maybe not open to hearing it and stuff. Are you guys worried at all? Or like, what are your feelings in regards to this being like this, these two podcasts being out there and live to the world to be able to see? Are you guys worried in any way, like how like that may impact others?
I'll start. I'm really not. And the reason why I'm not worried is because I'm doing this with Pastor Joel.
Nice.
And that, like, he is one of the most brilliant teachers that I've ever met in my life. And I'm really confident that I can deal with a lot of strong emotions from people. And I feel like tough questions and strong emotions are just about as bad as they are going to come out towards us. So I really feel like Pastor Joel and I, in terms of if there's a lashing out or if there's coming back, at us, we've had a lot of practice dealing with those issues together. So nice. And I was actually just talking to my wife, Morgan, about it today, where it's like, I am so, happy to be doing these interviews with Joel and to be working with Pastor Joel, where it's like, man, to sit in an interview and go, hey, if I don't know the question, if I don't know the answer to a question, or if I need a second to think about something, I can just look right at Pastor Joel and be like, go ahead, man, start talking. I'm just gonna sit here and think. Yeah. And so I'm really confident in our response. And so I feel like at this point, if there's going to be something, some damage that happens, I know that we can repair. If we are doing the damage or if we've said anything wrong, I think we'll be able to fix it, because we've fixed a lot of wrong things that we've done in the past. And, I imagine that both of you have witnessed, us admitting things that we were wrong in the past. So I am super, super confident, and I don't know if this is today or what, but I've been feeling this way, about what the Flock and the Music of Life Church podcast, very, very confidently. I think as Pastor Joel and I are growing together and working together.
Yeah, and I feel similarly. The podcast, so the content of the podcast themselves, we are doing such a careful, and we're being very careful and caring with each of the topics. And because of that, I think we're closing a lot of doors that people would walk through had we not been so careful and caring. Where the flares and the opposition we might normally experience, a lot of those doors are being shut before someone can even walk through it, which a lot of that though. So I think the content we have, we're being really careful with what we're presenting, making sure we're doing a good job of presenting it in a way where we're covering all sides of the argument. Right. But because of the experience that Pastor Jonathan alluded to is why we're able to shut these doors. because we have experience with, we know what the opposition is we're going to hear when we talk about certain topics because we dealt with it. So because of that experience, not only are we handling the episodes the right way, but we're also ready to handle any more opposition that comes to our path. And so we do it. So really it's practice, like Pastor Jonathan said. We have practice not only dealing with people coming at us being abusive, but we also have practice admitting we're wrong and repairing issues in our own lives. And if that's the mentality me and Pastor Jonathan maintain, is we just are open to whatever you're saying to us. We're open to any perspective. Then if somebody comes and attacks me, I only have opportunities to gain there if I have my brain in the right spot. If I have my attitude and mentality to be, I could be wrong, then I don't have anything to lose. Like, what do I have to lose if it's okay for me to be wrong? What do I have to fear if it's okay for me to be wrong? Like, because God doesn't care. He knows I'm going to be wrong. He's betting on it. That's why he gave us repentance, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I'll help you fix it.
Yeah.
I'll show you mercy. Let's work on this together. Like, that's Jehovah. That's God, our Father, being an awesome dad to us. You know, so if he doesn't care and he just waits to see how I respond, then I want to have that same attitude.
That's amazing. And I think too, even in the show, we get to see the opportunity of you guys even responding to Pastor Tater, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point.
Responding in such a loving way. So I appreciate that, guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Is it time?
Yeah, it's time. Hey, we're going to play a game. Have you guys ever played Top 3 before?
Is this that famous show on all those other late night game TV shows?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay. Then
Top 3. I don't know if I've actually played Top 3. Unless you're just asking me what my top 3 are and then I answer, but I don't know.
That's what we're going to do. So we're going to play Top 3.
Ooh.
I will give you a topic and you need to list your top 3 things. So the topic of all the categories of your podcast that you guys have done, what are the top 3 most tense topics that you guys have done?
Okay, season 1. We're sticking with season 1
here. Yeah, season 1.
Season 1.
So let's just take a second here because I gotta kind of run through the topics in my brain. I'll do okay, in order of most or just the top 3. So tithing.
Yep. Oh, come on. Ooh. Same here.
Same.
Same.
Divorce.
Yep.
And women in leadership.
Got it. Great answers. Pastor Jonathan.
Yeah. Tithing. You know, a couple senior pastors talking about money.
Yeah.
This is weird. This is a little self-serving of a topic, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Tithing. Okay. So what was our first episode?
Oh, we did drinking.
Okay.
Drinking was number 1. Yeah.
Like, just because of not necessarily the topic,
first episode.
Just because it was the first episode, and I was just, you know, like, do I know how to do this? This feels uncomfortable. So
and that's kind of where I landed
cheating?
with the women in leadership one. It was because tithing and divorce were like because of the content, and it's like tithing. We're talking 2 pastors talking about money is going to be touchy. Divorce because of the divorce ban, like talk about that's an area we get hammered on.
Yeah.
Women in leadership was because was because I was excited about that episode, but it was this, we got to get this right because we're two men talking about women in leadership and we got to get this right. So that's where the tension was for a different reason as the other ones, but there was where the same with the drinking episode for Pastor Jonathan. It's like, not because it's hard to talk about drinking, but because we're starting this whole project that's who knows what's going to happen.
So I'll say that and then divorce. So divorce, tithing, and drinking, just because it was the first one.
Yeah, that's a good.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And with the tense topics you discussed within your top 3, is there a correlation between the tense topics and a fun episode to do? Or like, what word would you describe those in terms of quality of podcast? Like harder to do, fun to do, your best ones?
Oh, I'll say this. All of them are fun.
Oh, cool.
Like every one of them was fun.
Nice.
I'm having a hard time picking out which one I think would be the most fun.
Sure.
But that's because me and Pastor Jonathan working together is a blast, and him and I are flowing, and we're doing ministry together and working, and I feel like we're being a part of the Great Commission doing this stuff. It's just a blast. But I'll say this, I do feel that extra level of passion and even some definite zeal, but almost some frustration come through when we're talking about the topics that have done the most damage in church.
Mm-hmm.
When we're because we start every episode, Pastor Jonathan will say, so give us the background. And that's the time where a lot of times what we're discussing is the massive amount of damage that's happened in the church because of these certain areas. And it's very tense to talk about, but those are very passionate moments too, because it just shows, like, I feel like my faith is being built in the moment of like, yes, this is why we need to talk about this, because look at all the crap that's happened.
Yeah.
So I don't know, fun, but passion's definitely involved with these really intense ones. Yeah.
Sweet. That's great.
And I always feel like after every single podcast, like before we film, I'm a wreck. Before we film, I'm just sitting there like, oh no, how's this gonna go? Is this gonna be okay? Are we gonna be able to do this?
And I'm talking, and I'm commentating. I'm like telling him all these things I'm gonna say, and he's just not listening. He can't hear me. But it's like that's part of our process. Is he's just kind of going through the interview, and I'm kind of like just spouting off all. I can't wait to say this thing to you. Can't wait to say this thing to you. And
which is great. Which is great for me because it's like when Pastor Joel gets nervous, he can get real chatty, and when I get nervous, I'm like really quiet and just. People think that there's something wrong with me, and it's just like it's just part of my process where it's like I'm so when it's done, like especially those tense topics, there is an amazing relief that I feel that we made it through. And I will just be like, what was it about that episode that was so good? And I probably couldn't tell you. But I know, like unconsciously, like the way that I feel about it is this whole idea of that was important.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Like this felt like we did, like my whole day is, is valid because of that podcast, because of filming. Like that will be eternally beneficial. So there's an amazing feeling of doing things like that, that we definitely want more people to have those moments of going, that is going to make some impact. It might piss some people off, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So
nice. Oh, that's great. Well, hey, thank you guys for sharing your answers and playing top 3.
Hey.
Awesome.
Patent pending.
So we're going to wrap up here, but before we do, I have one last question for you. So during your episodes or during this first season, there were a couple things that you guys had mentioned that in up and coming seasons, like you may consider doing a full episode on marriage or a full episode on how to determine truth or translate the Bible. So answer however you want, but what can we expect out of season 2?
Well, without giving anything away.
Right.
Man, what we expect about season 2 is I'll say this. Well, you can expect a more foundational approach to really what we're doing and to really the content we're presenting.
What people can expect in season 2 as well, like what Pastor Joel said, is the foundation, and we are going to simplify like Christianity, or the belief in Jesus, the belief in God, in the most simple way that we can, in a very strategic and simple way. We're going to lay a foundation that both Pastor Joel and I have built our faith upon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
We are very much looking forward to it.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much for being on our show today. You guys are great guests. Thank you so much. That was awesome. Thank you, honey. That was really fun. So, and guys, everybody, remember, if you've been hurt by a church, they're there.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Swokowski. This was such a fun time. Pleasure being on your show.
Yes. Thanks for being here, guys. We'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.